People leave things behind in cabins, but sometimes the things left behind don't want to be forgotten. A few winters ago, my life was a mess. A divorce, stress, and a growing feeling that something in my life was slipping away. Rachel, my girlfriend at the time, found a secluded rental cabin in Vermont. Quiet, isolated, perfect. We arrived just before sundown. No staff, no host, just a code to the lockbox and a note on the table. Welcome. Use the fire sparingly. We laughed. It was freezing. Like hell, we weren't using the fireplace. I grabbed the matches from the counter. The box was old, yellowed, handwritten on the side. They don't burn for you. Rachel was asleep. The only sounds were the wind outside and the crackling fire. Then a knock, not at the door, from inside the cabin. I sat up, listened. Another knock. From the fireplace, I stared into the flames. Something shifted, not logs, something deeper. I grabbed the matchbox, struck a match. Nothing. Another, nothing. Rachel mumbled, half asleep. Stop playing with those. But I wasn't playing, because the matchbox was empty. I woke up with a burnt match in my hand. I don't remember lighting it. Rachel was already up, staring at the fireplace. The logs were untouched, but there were ashes everywhere. On the floor, on the table, on the bed. She turned to me, pale. Did you light a fire last night? I shook my head. She pointed at the wall. There was writing, burnt into the wood. You used to remember me. We should have left, but I needed to know. Who? What? I stayed up, watching the fireplace. No fire. Just waiting. Then, footsteps. From inside the chimney. A whisper followed. Familiar. Let me show you what you forgot. I turned. Rachel was asleep. Number Rachel was still downstairs. Then, the thing wearing her face smiled. My vision blurred. The room spun. Memories, a different winter, a different cabin, a different Rachel. I remembered her screaming, the fire, the matchbox in my hand. I remembered what I did. I remembered who I burned, and now they remembered me. People come to Black Hollow Lake for peace. They don't come back. At least, not the same. I never believed the stories. The missing hikers, the abandoned cabins with dinner plates still on the table, the shredded tents found in the woods. Until the third night. It started with a sound, a low hum, barely noticeable over the wind and falling snow. I thought it was part of my dream at first, but then I woke up. The storm had gotten worse. Snow whipped against the cabin windows, thick as smoke. Rachel was still asleep beside me, curled under the blankets, but the hum, it wasn't the wind. I sat up, listening harder. A motor, faint but getting closer. I moved to the window, wiping away the frost. That's when I saw it. A snowmobile. It was creeping across the frozen lake. The headlights cut through the storm, but the driver's movements were strange, hesitant. Then they stopped and climbed off. I watched as they started waving, arms flailing, yelling. At first I thought they were in trouble, but then I realized they weren't shouting for help. They were facing our cabin. I jolted Rachel awake. There's someone on the ice. Still groggy, she sat up frowning. What? I was already throwing on my coat. Downstairs, I stepped onto the porch, the cold hitting me like a slap. The wind howled, snow swirling under the dim porch light. The figure on the ice. It was a woman, bundled in a thick fur coat, her hair pulled back into a tight braid. Her voice carried over the storm. Help! My boy, I lost him. A kid? Out here? He wouldn't last long in this cold. I tightened my boots and took a step forward. Stay here, I told Rachel. Call 911. The ice groaned beneath my feet as I made my way toward the woman. The snowmobile sat abandoned behind her, headlights still beaming. She was shivering, crying. "My son," she sobbed. "He ran off. Please, please, I can't find him." I was close now, close enough to see her eyes. And that's when something twisted in my gut. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking past me, right at our cabin. Then she spoke again. "Do you still have those matches?" Her voice changed, calm, smiling. A sharp, icy spike of fear drove into my spine. The package, the note. This wasn't a stranded mother. She'd been waiting. And before I could move, she reached into her coat and pulled out a gun. I didn't think. I raised my hands as she stepped closer, her shadow stretching long over the ice. "Wallet?" Phone. My heart pounded. I handed them over. I had no choice. She took a step back, never breaking eye contact. Then, without another word, she turned, climbed onto the snowmobile, and vanished into the whiteout. The cops came an hour later. They found nothing. No tracks, no signs of a child. The storm had wiped it all clean. "She probably just got desperate," one of the officers said. "Junkies pull stuff like this all the time." But I couldn't shake it. The matches, the note. She hadn't been looking for money. She had been waiting for us. And somewhere, deep in that endless frozen wilderness, she still was. I rented a remote lake house in Michigan. Cheap, peaceful, perfect. The owner, Mr. Holloway, had only one rule: don't use the basement. The first night, just as I was about to sleep, a thump from downstairs. I froze. Another thump, then a slow, dragging sound, like something being pulled across the floor. I grabbed a flashlight and crept toward the basement door. The handle was ice cold. I turned it, locked. The next morning, I asked Holloway about it. His voice was tense. That door should never be unlocked. That night it was, wide open. A single wet footprint led upstairs. I didn't stay to see who left it. As I sped away, I got a text from Holloway. "Tell me you didn't go down there." I didn't reply, but in my rearview mirror, a shadow stood on the porch, watching. As I turned the corner, my phone vibrated again. A picture. From my number. It was me, sleeping in bed. But in the corner of the photo, the basement door was open.